Hi there, and welcome back. In this video, I want to give you a bit of an overview of the new SketchUp 2026.1 version that just came out, because they added quite a few AI functions to it. There's a AI assistant now that you can use to ask questions and get answers, or create models. But there's also a new version of what used to be called SketchUp Diffusion, and it's now called AI Render. And I want to give you a bit of an overview of that, including some examples that I've been testing with both of those. First with Diffusion and now with the AI Render software. And yeah, I want to give you my opinion on this. All right, more on that in a minute. Don't forget to check out my book, Architectural Design with SketchUp. It covers all of these topics and makes for a great desk reference. You can find it where books are sold. There's also a link to it on my site, sketchupfordesign.com, together with lots of additional tutorials and news. All right, let's get started. In the latest version, SketchUp 2026.1, that just got released, there are a bunch of updates. Some of those are related to the AI functionality, and that it got some feature updates, and it's also got some user interface updates. And in terms of user interface, you can see now that there's a AI button right here, little magic dust, like every software right now. And when you click on it, you get this little window that has a button for the AI assistant, which is basically a Q&A sort of interface, a chatbot, but one that is extensible. And right now it also allows you to create geometry, which is great. And it looks very much like there's more coming. And then there's the AI render, which is what previously used to be called SketchUp Diffusion, and is an evolved version of that. And both of those come from here. Another thing that got introduced are credits. So now there's a subscription sort of approach to credits, where you can get some with your basic SketchUp subscription, and then you can get some more if you need more. Those reset every month, and by doing that, the SketchUp folks do something similar to other AI software companies, which go with this monthly subscription model. And then, of course, you pay for a certain amount and you get to use those. All right, so that's one way to get there. Under the extension menu, you also have a button there, and so then you can just open up the AI render interface, and it looks like it just flickered here, but it didn't. It's actually a dialog that has the view size preset, and then shows up like this here. You can make it larger, smaller as you need. I'll make it a little smaller so that we see the difference basically right here. And then in the dialog, you can also review your credits. So that seems to be a very core thing now, and it's really useful that it's very transparent, when you pay and how much you pay. So that's really good. Then you get an overview of your created images, a gallery right here, and a little help button. And then, of course, the magic happens down here on the bottom, where you have now a toolbar for all the functionality that's built in there. So the old user interface was very different. It was a vertical sort of dialogue, and I do like this one here much better. It works very nicely because you get the full view of your model and the full view of the result, and you can explore much better there. All right. So how do you work with it? Well, by default, this first option is open, which is your prompt. You can click on this little settings thing here. And when that opens, actually, let me just reset the settings for a second. By default, it looks like this here, where you can pick a few things that are related to your prompt. You can enter the prompt right here, basically. You get a little bit of an auto feedback there too. But then you can pick a style preset. So there's an auto preset, which should work well in most cases, is one of those approaches. And then there's, of course, the ones that were there before. So exterior, interior, sketchy, watercolor, all that kind of stuff. So this is very similar to before, but this auto actually got improved. And from what I've learned from one of Trimble's videos is basically too that auto seems to have a different AI engine than all the others. And it seems to show. So once you're once you've picked the preset you want, you can write your prompt. And then there are a few additional settings that you can put in. All of those allow you to do a negative prompt, which is something along the lines of, but please don't do this and that. If I switch from auto to exterior photorealistic, I get a few more options. Now I have a little bit more control over how well it should stick to the original geometry and prompt influence and that sort of stuff. So most of this is experimentation and trying to find a way that works really well for you. So you will have to try all of those out and find which of the setting combinations work well for you. There's a last one here that's really interesting where it says no style. Because when you click no style, you can add a reference image, and I'll show you in a second how that actually works really well. So that's a neat add-on to that. Okay, let me go back down here now. Let's assume you've done your prompt. Then you click on the generate button. Next to it, you see how many credits will get used by generating one image, and that's the generation part. Now there's a few other options here. You can also then, on the second tool button right here, you can erase things. So you draw over something and you can erase in the generated image. Next one, you can actually mask something and prompt and say, but please do this in a different style or something along those lines. And then the last one over here lets you sketch something very rudimentary. Let's do a tree. There you go. And then you can ask for a tree, and it will put a tree right there. So that's really useful as well. Then if you go to the right here, you have the option, once you generate an image, to add it as a scene in SketchUp. And you see already that I did that a bunch of times. So I'll show you in a second how that looks like. And you can also save the generated image to your machine as a file, and then next to it you can just reset the view. All of that, you usually kind of go back and forth between these tools. Sometimes you will need to, let's do a relevant one. You will need to pull up an older image and one that's generated, and then work off that, and then you will want to reset again. Oops, no, not this one. You want to reset, and then you start a new one. So in principle, that's the workflow for the interface there. So I did that with a few samples. I'm not going to do a live, generation right now. I'd rather show you the ones that I have generated before, that I've saved as tabs right here, and give you a little bit of an overview of my sample images. They don't, work for everybody. That's not everybody's workflow, but they kind of cover some standard cases. All right, so let's take a look at those. All right, so first up, people. Just some of the standard SketchUp cutouts. In diffusion, that did not work very well. Faces usually were quite mangled, and from a distance it was okay. Up close it wasn't. So that's changed quite a bit. So now what I did here was I really just put it in a prompt like people in a park, and it gave me people in a park, and they look realistic. They got normal faces. Everything else fits very close with the original image, and it works pretty well. Mark looks different, but anyways. And that you can, of course, do a few different times and different ways. Usually you get 3 options for each run, and then you can pick the one you like best, and maybe work off that, maybe start things off that one, and make some changes. Ask for different elements. Take these guys out, for example, or whatever, or draw something in, and so on and so forth, and then build this up. I wanted to show you this really quick. This first image, the one that I'm showing right now, it was with the auto setting, which apparently is a different AI engine than all the others. And if I switch that to the second setting, so now let me just show you what I mean. In right here, first one was with this auto setting. Now for the current one that you're seeing here, I used the exterior photorealistic preset. And that shows also very well. Faces are there. Everything was reasonably well done. These guys here on the right, that never seems to work out well because it's too mangled. It's just a shadow cutout. But yeah, no, it's not bad. But the visuals seem to be quite different. So from what I've seen, auto gives very detailed, very nicely lit images, whereas these are good, but some of them are a little flat, kind of thing. Anyways, but people come out nicely, and that's the main thing from test number 1, basically. Here's a funny one. Told you earlier that you can put up a sample image. So as you can imagine, the art nerds know what I did. I basically downloaded a Seurat image from the web and used that as a sample. And I had the same prompt, people in a park, and just, the few people cutouts. And it did this here, and it's actually pretty good. Like I said earlier, let me show you again where that is. This is in these settings. If you go to No Style, right there, and you say Add a Reference Image, and you pick, the Seurat image in this case, and then you get that style. Actually, let me show you something else. What I did, I used on one of the other samples, a hand sketch that I had uploaded. And that's a great way to impart your own sketchy style on a view very quickly. Find a sketch that represents your style best, and then upload that as the sample, basically as the style preset, and then it'll apply it. And I must say this worked pretty well right there. Anyways, so I just wanted to show you that. Again, you can, of course, have some fun with this. Let's switch to the master plan, like an overview, blocky buildings, that sort of stuff. Again, I tried a few different settings. There are some watercolor settings, where you can get fairly, really well usable stuff right out of the, first attempt. Of course, you can refine all of this, which I did not do here. But the trees are where they're supposed to be, the buildings are where they're supposed to be, and then there's, of course, a whole lot of, interpretation happening in between there, and this can help with ideation as well. So this is a really good part of the rendering software here too. It may not need to be a final render, it could be an ideation renderer rather than that. Here's another one right there. Now, if we zoom in on one of these buildings, I wanted to test a little bit, scale and materials and so on and so forth. And then actually, when I did this in diffusion way back when, it was quite fuzzy. You can find the image actually on my blog on SketchUp4Design.com. And now it's fairly crisp. And I also did ask for people, because there were no people. And what's interesting is, the scale is really just given by the trees and the building, and they just, it works reasonably well just by asking for it. Of course, if you want to have more control, you would put a few people cutouts in here and then say, or basically ask for people in the scene, and then of course it most likely get it right. So I just wanted to test this out. I did ask for college campus, give it that as a context. These all look a little older than college, but again, I didn't give it a good sample. So, it worked with my one-line prompt, basically. Next up is this vase sculpture, the face cutout right here, if you can see it. I like this one for testing this because you can very quickly see whether the object fidelity goes awry because the face started to look funky. So this is all I submitted, basically just the shape and nothing else around it. And I asked for a sculpture in a lush forest. And then I got this. So great. So it's exactly what I had asked for. The outline, the face outline is very well done as before. And again, this was with auto, so you actually have some really nice lighting. You have some really nice detail. The grass comes out really nice. So that seems to be working very, very well. What I want to show you right here is a little bit of this inpainting that you can do. So let me open it up again. If I go to the render right here, I can go to the last one there. Oops, that one's still there. But basically, then I can start telling it what I want it to do. Basically here I did something along those lines of that and just asked for a, tropical plants in the planter sort of situation kind of thing. So with that, I got this. So that's great. This is exactly what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to just tell it roughly what it is you want and it fills in the rest without touching anything else. So if you look around the image, it did not fill in anything else. It kind of filled in a little bit the vegetation behind, but that's to be expected, of course. But otherwise, it's good. Then I did ask it to change the material to stone, and it did that, also for the bench, and kept everything else reasonably the same. Even these plants up here are reasonably the same. So great. It's a real nice process to kind of iteratively go through it. One thing that you notice, though, is how my face slowly degrades. So it goes from here, well, that one's good, but then here we're, kind of losing it slowly. So there's that. But again, this is a very extreme example, maybe, for what I want to show you. But good example for inpainting, basically. The final example that I wanted to try out was an interior, and especially one that has reflections, windows, more reflections, and lights. And that's, of course, the domain of photorealistic rendering. That's where rendering software is great because you can get lights, you can get reflections, you can get shadows, you get diffuse reflections, and all the stuff that makes an image look right. So I ran this a few times and with different prompts, and I did get different results. Some were very dark somehow, like this one here. I noticed that if I put in a comment about making it bright enough, it automatically brightened this. But I did get, these lamps didn't always turn out right and so on. So it's a bit of a work to get especially lighting and reflections right. So you'll see that quite nicely in this version, which looks great. But what really works are these these ambient reflections, diffuse reflections. That's really great. But these two lights, the light cones, it knew that there need to be upward light cones, which is great, but it placed it a little off to the side, and same here. So there's that. Then of course the downlights came out best in this version, not in every version. But then also now I have like 3 cones on the wall here, and the 4th one is over there. So there's it's not aligned as a rendering software would do it. Also with the reflections, the geometries are a little off there, here, that sort of stuff. And then for some odd reason, the outside window is fully reflective as well. So Anyways, take that with a grain of salt, and of course, reflections and lights. That's tricky to get right for a software like this. So I would say anything that has diffuse lighting, anything that has diffuse reflections, basically, not sharp reflections, will most probably work out much better than what I did here. This is what I might call a mean test, basically. But in any case, so those are some examples for the new AI render. And yeah, give it a try. Check it out. Play with all these style presets. Try different ways to manipulate the images, and then of course download your result and show it to clients. So that's what is now in the 2026.1 SketchUp version, and yeah, that's my little overview of it. All right, thanks.